2004 American war historical drama movie depicts the famous Battle of the Alamo. Despite having a star-studded cast, the movie underperformed at the box office, but has been praised for its truthfulness to history. But just how truthful is it? To begin with, it is only fair to say that The Alamo is a movie to entertain and not a documentary to educate. Most of the film was shot between January and June 2003, primarily using sets built at a ranch near Austin at 51 acres. It was the largest set ever built in America at the time. Several buildings, including the mission station, were constructed for the film at a cost of around $10 million. The movie was filmed on a full-size, working set outside Dripping Springs, Texas, which added authenticity to the project. In taking on such a hailed subject, the movie risked strong criticism, as previous films had done in the past. The Alamo manages to succeed in spite of this risk, though it does romanticise the events associated with the Alamo, but it strives for historical accuracy and manages to humanise the historical figures on which it focuses. One of the historical figures to which the movie focuses on is Lieutenant Colonel William Travis, portrayed by Patric Wilson. In the movie, Lieutenant Colonel William Travis of Alabama is a textbook commander who rose rapidly in the ranks. As a former school teacher, he has lots of book learning, but little experience of combat and command, and the men of the Alamo know it. He doesn't have their respect, and he's got to try and earn it. In reality, Travis clashed with authorities in Anahuac shortly after arriving in Texas, feuding over Mexico's anti-slavery laws. He spent 2 months in prison and earned a reputation as a troublemaker, but went on to build a successful law practice. Then, in June 1835, as tensions mounted between colonists and Mexican officials, Travis returned to Anahuac. With 20 volunteers and a small cannon, he forced the local customs officer to leave town. That was Travis's first experience with military action, just as the Texas Revolution was unfolding. 6 months later, in February 1836, newly commissioned Lieutenant Colonel Travis assumed joint command of the Alamo with James Bowie. As Mexican forces gathered, Travis sent dispatches to fellow Texians pleading for reinforcements, saying, "If my countrymen do not rally to my relief," he declared, "I am determined to perish in defence of this place, and my bones shall reproach my country for her neglect." The man who does have the men's respect in the movie is Colonel Jim Bowie, portrayed by Jason Patric, a legendary knife fighter who is remembered even today for his popularisation of the Bowie knife. He's portrayed as a natural commander, though the problem is that he isn't the man in charge of the Alamo's regulars, only the Texan volunteers there. Conflict between the two groups, as well as differences in command ability, bring him into regular conflict with Travis. The real Bowie moved to Texas in 1828. In April 1831, he married Ursula Maria, the daughter of the vice-governor, though their marriage lasted only 2 years, as she died as cholera in 1833. In a statement of worth to Ursula's father, Bowie fraudulently listed land in Arkansas valued at $30,000. By 1834, Bowie was again engaged in land speculation, this time in Texas. When conflict broke out in 1835 between independent-minded Anglo-Americans and Mexicans in Texas and those supporting the Mexican government, Bowie quickly sided with the Texans. He participated in 2 minor battles and several skirmishes before being stricken with typhoid at the Alamo, where he served as commander of the volunteer forces of the garrison. The third member of the historical triumvirate leading the Alamo defences is former Congressman Davy Crockett of Tennessee, portrayed by Billy Bob Thornton. One of the most famous men of his day, Crockett is a man living in the shadow of his own legend. He knows that he's not the larger-than-life character people think he is, and he struggles to live up to what others suppose him to be. Crockett is embarrassed by their adulation, but willing to use the advantages it offers. A seasoned politician, he brings the element of idealism and pragmatism needed to help Travis and Bowie lead their men in the movie. Historically, it was in early February when Crockett arrived at San Antonio de Bexar. On the one hand, Crockett was still fighting Jackson. The Americans in Texas were split into 2 political factions that divided roughly into those supporting a conservative Whig philosophy and those supporting the administration. Crockett chose to join Colonel William B. Travis, who had deliberately disregarded Sam Houston's orders to withdraw from the Alamo, rather than support Houston, a Jackson sympathizer. What was more, he saw the future of an independent Texas as his future, and he loved a good fight. The depiction of Crockett's fate in the movie came from the memoirs written by Jose Enrique de la Pena, an officer in Santa Anna's army. Though accepted by many historians, this was the first film to show Crockett executed as a prisoner of war. All others had depicted his death as occurring during the battle. That sparked criticism from many Alamo enthusiasts and some historians, given the disputed nature of its origins. Arrayed against the men of the Alamo are the forces of Mexican general and dictator Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, portrayed by Emilio Echeverria. He comes off in the film as arrogant and brutal, but then he was a dictator who referred to himself as the Napoleon of the West, and who ordered the wholesale massacre of his opponents. His forces badly outnumber the men in the Alamo, and there is no way the latter can win without reinforcements. They are hoping for reinforcements being brought by Texan General Sam Houston, portrayed by Dennis Quaid, but they don't arrive, and the inevitable massacre comes. Some historians say that the movie's portrayal of Mexican General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna is inaccurate, as Santa Anna was more of a gambler and opium user than the villain depicted in the film. Though the movie strives to represent the historical reality of the events it depicts, it does fail in a few ways. The Texans' reason for secession aren't brought out clearly enough for a modern audience. Neither is the fact that they weren't fighting to join the United States, but to create an independent Republic of Texas, which existed for almost a decade before statehood. The movie's effort to be historically accurate does take a toll on its pacing. In real life, Santa Anna prepared the field by having his men blockade the Alamo and conduct psychological warfare on its defenders for almost 2 weeks before the major assault came. The film depicts this by an extended sequence that may leave the audience wondering when the battle will finally come. That was the effect that the blockade was meant to have on the men inside the Alamo, but it would have been shrewder filmmaking to shorten this sequence. It also may have been better for the filmmakers to lengthen the battle that finally takes place, and to make it not appear quite so one-sided. Since we don't know the precise dynamics of the real battle, the filmmakers could have shown the Texans having a last-minute rally before their inevitable defeat. The 2004 film The Alamo is generally considered to be historically accurate, with some saying It's one of the most accurate depictions of the historical personalities of 1836. However, others say that the movie romanticises the events of the Alamo and diminishes the real characters who defended the station.